Mark Wayner with Champions Real Estate Team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Ambassador Real Estate Company. Joining me today is Russ Williams with Williams Mortgage as we talk everything real estate in the Omaha metro area. So as we get through here, we always like to do a quick tip. Quick tip today is contingencies. So people may think, what is a contingency? How does that play in, how does that play in the role of the real estate transaction? So there's many different kinds of contingencies out there, as far as home inspection contingencies, financing contingencies, home sale contingencies. So there's a lot of different things. So what that means is this offer is contingent upon one of those things coming true or not coming true. So let's say for home inspection contingency, very simple one. You do a home inspection, basically you have three options: accept the home as it is, ask the seller to make any repairs or credits. They basically give you money in lieu of doing repairs, or you cancel the contract. You say, hey, based on the home inspection, I decide I don't want to buy the house. There's things that I don't like, and you can walk away from that home, essentially from purchasing that home. One, you may forfeit. There's an earnest deposit that should be coming back to you, but you would have to pay for that home inspection. So, home inspections range depending on the size of the house. $500 on up usually is typically what I see on most home inspections. If it can be up to 700, 800, depending on like obviously if it's a larger home, there's more to inspect. So that's just going to be a sliding scale on that side. But so you find something you don't like, it's worth that home inspection, fee to do that. But ultimately you can, may be able to get your earnest deposit back because it's contingent upon that. Same thing on financing side. So say, unfortunately you go through the financing, you're able to get a loan, and, unfortunately maybe you lose your job, things of that sort. You would not be able to get financing on the home. Therefore, you would not be able to move forward with that purchase, in that side. So those are some contingencies. Those are things we walk through. Like when we talk, you hear us talk a lot on our weekly videos here of having a playbook. And so those are the plays in the playbook that we can put in there. So part of that financing one, I guess, is like appraisals. That home must appraise at or above purchase price. I see agents, they will put that into the contract. You typically don't need to put that in the contract because it's already based on you getting financing, which part of that financing bubble, I guess, part of that is going to be one, you're going to have to verify your income, tax returns, things of that sort. But you're also got, from the lender standpoint, they're not going to give you more money than what that house is worth or what the appraiser says it's worth. Now, yes, you can go back and that seller can contest it, provide comparables, things, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's, again, plays in the playbook. Part of that negotiation strategy, that's what we do on our end. One, if we're working for you as the seller, we're going to try to get that price where we see it at based on our valuations. I've done that before, talked to lenders, worked with that appraiser, and basically said, hey, here's what we see. What do you see? And you work together in that lieu of it. So I think that's, ultimately what we're trying to do from a seller's perspective is net you the most amount, and we're trying to get that appraisal through. So more than a quick tip today, I guess, but that's a lot of things that we can go through, especially in our coaching sessions, whether from a buyer's perspective, seller's perspective, and give you kind of a rundown of what's going on in that aspect of it. So let's jump in, look at the numbers as this pulls up here. Where we at here? All right, so as the numbers come up, we had 697 new listings go live in the last 7 days. And that was basically just down from 700 even last week. So we're pretty steady on what's coming in. And our new contracts, that went up. We were, I think, like 396. So we had about another 20 more contracts getting written. Happy new homeowners, 497 of you guys out there. So congratulations to you. So yeah, that's kind of our numbers looking there. So what this correlates with, so obviously if we don't have as many coming on, we got more going off. Our inventory is going to go down. Months of inventory went down. Last week we were at 4.1. We're at 3.2. So 0 to 3 is deemed kind of our seller's market. 3 to 6 is neutral. 6 and above is deemed more of a buyer's market. So we're right around that kind of neutral sellerish market. Just had a mastermind meeting yesterday at Berkshire with about another 15, 20 agents. We get together once a month, talk shop. We talk about what's going on in the market. What are we seeing on our listings? What are we seeing with our buyers? And what we're essentially seeing, it depends on the price points, on what's happening in each one of those price points. Even under the 300,000, we're not seeing a whole lot of necessarily multiple offers coming in. Yes, if that house is mint condition, all updated, priced appropriately, you may get some multiple offers in there. If you get some houses and you have some deferred maintenance items on them that maybe need a little bit of work, they're priced appropriately, those sellers may be willing to even give you some concessions. Basically, mean you may be doing a home inspection, asking for repairs. You may get closing costs. The thing we also talk about closing cost is you're financing those closing costs over that life of that loan. So does it make sense to take $5,000? You say, oh, seller is not paying your closing costs. So that's one thing that I think a lot of agents don't explain to their clients is that seller's truly not paying them. You're allowing you to finance them. So that $5,000 over 6.5% interest rate over the 30 years, it's going to cost you more than $5,000. So, but if you want that money in your pocket, keep it in your savings account right now to buy blinds, buy furniture, a lawnmower, especially if it's your first house. That again plays in the playbook that we talked about. So months of inventory, like we said, kind of right around that neutral to seller's market. Obviously, price points different. We can go into that on an individual basis. So what are we seeing ultimately? More, the good homes, you may still be competing for those. Like I said, obviously more options still exist. So there's more homes out there, not as many flying off the shelves. And obviously buyer activity, we saw that number go up on the pending units. Obviously inventory moved back down, helping the sellers, obviously tipping the scales more towards the seller side. Pending sales improved, positioning still matters. So obviously making sure that house is priced based on condition, location, all those things that you can kind of control. So that's kind of what we're seeing here on the real estate side. So I guess we'll jump in here with Russ. What he's seeing on the mortgage side. I'm kind of seeing they're kind of flat as far as what rates are doing. I don't know what other indicators you're seeing out there. I know you have a pretty good pulse of the lending side. So I'll
Yeah,
hand it over
we've
to
had a
you.
fair amount of activity over the last week, but we have ended pretty much where we were at the same time last week. Mortgage rates rose over the course of the week, and then we saw some improvement today. And the primary reason for that is a recent announcement that the Treasury Department is going to increase their buyback of some of the longer term treasuries and longer term maturities. That tends to push yields down a little bit, which brings mortgage rates down. That's to our benefit. How long this will last is hard to say. Right now, they're telegraphing they might do this through the 4th of November. Certainly, those things can change. But having said that, people focus on mortgage rates, which is certainly something that impacts borrowing and buying power. Lots of other things do as well. But having said that, if we do happen to see continued improvement in mortgage rates, which we don't know for sure, but if we do see that happen, as we've talked about many times, Mark, it's expected that will pull more people off the sidelines. We talked about affordability before we got online here. As rates come down, affordability gets better, and that means more people are in the market. So there is a great opportunity right now with inventory being where it's at and with lots of new homes being available on the market. There's a chance to get what you want without having a lot of competitive competition to deal with. This is why it's important to get with your team. But having said that, yes, we're right back where we were at the same time last week.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think again, it's now's the time to get the ducks in a row. I feel like we have the repeater on every single week, but it is one of those things that's, my viewpoint on it is it doesn't matter to me when you choose to buy a house. We just want to be part of that process. We want to educate you in the entire process of it so that you know what to do when to do it. Everyone's like, well, we're going to time the market. Well, again, you hear us, or I feel like I'm a broken record, but timing the market, it's not necessarily the most important thing. It's when is the best time to buy for you is when you are ready. And I think you don't necessarily sometimes might not know when you are ready until you have a good coaching staff, again, our sports analogy, a team around you that can help you make that decision, get your playbook out, have a lender like Russ run the numbers for you, myself kind of going through the steps of the process that you feel comfortable with it. You're doing, you know what you're doing and why you are doing it. And I think those are a huge thing to, take advantage of those markets so that if all of a sudden in November maybe rates come down, I don't know, but you are ready. Oh, I don't want to buy a house in the fall. Well, that's when the least amount of buyers are out there. So when's the best time to buy? Historically, what's based off of our trends that we can see in the graphs that I look at is in that fall to winter time frame. Less competition, best time to sell a home. When there's fewer homes, more buyers, which is going to be in that spring summer market. So it just makes sense in that regards. And so I think getting in touch with us, someone here at Champions Real Estate Team, myself, whoever, that you fit best with in that side. So I think that's the most important thing in there. And I guess, I can go over anything and everything, under the sun. I can talk for hours. I teach real estate continuing education classes, talk 3 hours on disclosure, talk 3 hours on a lot of that stuff that, I can help educate you on the process. I think one of the things I love to hear from my clients personally is that, hey, Mark, I feel like I could do your job. I think if I get to that point where my clients feel like that they say they can do my job, like I don't want to do your job, but I know that I feel confident enough that if somebody, that I am helping explain things enough to them that they can feel confident in the decisions that they make. Like, you want to buy this house? Great. You want to buy this house? Great. But which there's pros and cons to each. And that's my job, is to give you that, hey, here's the pros and cons. What do you like? What don't you like? And then Russ on the lending side, hey, does it make sense to do a 3.5% FHA, or does it make sense to do a 5% conventional? What are the pros? What are the cons? Because we're not just trying to get you into a house. We're trying to get you into the best house for you, and give you the ammunition so that you know why you're doing what you're doing. Because I've worked with enough clients in the past that have bought houses previously with somebody else or with a different lender. And also, like, gosh, I didn't realize that the seller didn't pay my closing costs. When my agent and my lender said that the seller's paying my closing costs, I thought that was a great deal. And like, we had money that we could have used for that, that aspect of it, but we chose not to. And I didn't realize that's all going, we're paying that over 30 years. Well, yeah, and so sometimes it makes sense for you and sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't know, both sides of the coin, you don't know any. You don't know what you don't know. And there's no fault to you as the consumer, as the buyer or the seller. But it's our job to have a fiduciary responsibility to do what's, legally what's in your best interest. And I feel like that is educating you as best as we can. So anyways, that was a long-winded little video here. So, but yeah, like I said, if you have questions, comments, reach out to us individually. If you have other topics you would love for us to cover, we were happy to do it. Like I said, I think we have over 60 some classes in our CE portfolio at Results Coaching. So if you're thinking about getting a real estate license, give us a holler. We can help you with that. Russ does teach the financing class at the Results Coaching School of Real Estate. I do more of the CE side of it. So having 3 kiddos, my wife probably wouldn't appreciate it if I'm gone 3 nights a week from 6 to 10 o'clock while she's doing bedtime. So, but yeah, give us a holler. Happy to help you on both sides of it. Get it in the real estate business, learn it, and then educate yourself. Happy to do you on that side too. So cool. All right. That's all I got. Rock and roll until next week.